Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, and I'm back to bring you my final episode review from the Loud House road trip arc. So let's get right into it. Our last road trip episode is Hide and Sneak. In this episode, the Louds have to avoid making contact with the Casagrandes so Rita doesn't miss her last deadline for her travel column, but they keep running into them everywhere they go. For this being the very last episode in the road trip arc, and I really hate to say it, but this was a very weak way of bringing it to a close. There was nothing too exciting or engaging about it. Every other road trip episode took place in a very unique location around the United States. This episode, on the other hand, just takes place in Great Lake City, and it honestly felt no different than watching any other run-of-the-mill episode from the Loud House or even the Casagrandes. If you remove the fact the Louds were on a multi-episode road trip and change it to where Rita was simply going to the city to write an article that had nothing to do with a cross-country vacation, you could tell the exact same story and the end result would be the same no matter what. The only highlights on my list were during the final minute when both families were seated at the dinner table on the roof, and Rita writing the last few sentences of her article. Of course, I can't forget the Casagrandes as honorable mention, since it's always a pleasure seeing them make cameos every now and again. However, in this episode, none of them really do anything to make themselves stand out as their own characters. They were mostly used as generic plot devices to push the story forward, which was basically the Louds going to 3 different venues for Rita's article about Great Lake City. Every time they saw a Casagrande, they tried to avoid them by any means necessary. And I do mean any means necessary, like trying to sneak away in a bunch of instrument cases. Then again, there were several instances where it's kinda difficult to believe the Casagrandes couldn't see the Louds at all. For example, Ronnie M was looking straight ahead when she rounded a corner on her skateboard, and she didn't notice the Louds directly in front of her? Same thing when Sergio was flying above the Great Lake City Tower and when Carl walked out of the elevator leading to the roof. Talk about plot convenience. But believe me, that's not as bad as the attempts the Louds took to avoid being spotted. They nearly fell to their deaths when they tried to escape the tower because the swing stage couldn't hold their combined weight. For God's sakes, the dad was willing to jump off a building if it meant not having to call the Casagrandes for help when his family got trapped on the roof of their apartment complex. The most obvious question, which is the same one Rosa brings up towards the end, is why didn't Rita just tell her family that the Louds wouldn't have time to mingle with the Casagrandes because of her deadline? You know, just a quick hello in public and explain the situation. Rosa said they would have understood and left them alone. Hell, Rita could have called them after she finished her article and maybe have both families meet up for dinner or something. You can't really blame Rosa for getting offended when she found out the Louds were actively trying to hide from her entire family, a family who has nothing but love and respect for them. Rita indirectly dissed Rosa right to her face by saying they had to avoid her family because they had something important to do. Granted, she got her words mixed up and tried to say Rosa's family was not important, but Rosa's hurt feelings still stand nonetheless. Rita made it sound as if the Casagrandes would just be a huge distraction and merely interacting with them would be a detriment to her job. Interpret that however you want, but I would be pretty miffed if that's what someone was trying to say about my family. No matter what, and as one would easily predict, the Louds apologize for being sneaky, the Casagrandes forgive them, and they all eat dinner together as Rita puts the final touches on her column. The way she concludes her article is really nice. She says how it's not always what you do that makes the trip, it's the people you spend time with. I think that applies perfectly to not only this episode, but the road trip arc in general. That was a satisfying way to close the episode. Well, actually, seeing the Loud family RV get towed away was a little more satisfying if you consider it a form of punishment for their earlier behavior, but maybe that's just me. Overall, as much as I wanted to enjoy this episode since it was supposed to be the big finale to the road trip arc, this one just didn't do it for me. If this had been a 20-minute special with the Casagrandes having a bigger role as they joined the Louds for some big adventure in a place other than Great Lake City, the road trip arc could have ended on a much higher note. Instead, we're given an episode where one set of characters tries to spare the feelings of another set of characters, only for the first set of characters to end up hurting the feelings of the second set of characters. I get what the writers were going for, and I understood the lesson they were aiming to teach, but what the Louds went through in order to learn that lesson was a bad combination of stupid and borderline deadly. Besides the Casagrande cameos and the dinner scene towards the end, everything else was either aggravating, maybe a tad funny depending on the scene, or just plain dumb. Out of the 7 road trip episodes, this one, in my opinion, is the lowest slowest and the weakest. With that said, I give Hide and Sneak a 5.8 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Hide and Sneak. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.